Everybody, welcome. Thank you for being here and thank you for your patience. I'll call the meeting of the comment board to order, and Ms. Jacobs, if you'll take the roll. Will.
Here.
Good.
Present.
Sweet.
Present.
Ms. Herbert.
Here.
Zen Howard.
Here.
Dr. Morris.
Present.
Mr. Smith.
I'm here.
Ms. Gracio. Here. Mr. Irving.
Here.
Advisory members, Mr. Green. Madam Chair, you have a quorum. Thank you so much.
Hold on, we need to identify someone. 17788788193. Identify yourself.
Press star 6 or #6 if you're on the phone to unmute.
Yes, you're muted. 17788788193, please identify yourself. Press star 6 to unmute.
Thank you. And as we call the roll, this is the first comment board meeting in, I don't know how many years, that we did not call the name of Mr. John Fergus. And so you'll see that his usual seat has a covering and we have flowers there, and it is just going to be a really, really different body and different situation without his voice in the room. And so I think I can speak for the comment board and many staff here today in saying that he is already missed. And I want to welcome Ms. Fergus here today. Thank you for being here. And you have some folks with you?
Yeah. Today I have my daughter, Kimberly, our daughter, Kimberly, and John's sister, Norma.
Right. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, so I'll just allow, so if a board member would like to take a moment of personal privilege and say something, now would be a good time if you wanted to.
First of all, my name is Carolyn Gleason. I'm a neighbor. And I'm gonna miss him a whole lot. It's hard. He has been such a dedicated person to this comment board. We really gonna miss him. He worked very hard for it in the public sector. Behind the scenes, he was there for us. We can never forget that. And he has the most wonderful family, his wife, his daughter. It's hard.
Yes.
Let me first say, may God bless you, Ms. Burgess, sister and daughter. I've been knowing Mr. Burgess for a long time, and Mr. Burgess really, really love his family. Mr. Burgess is to refer to you, Mrs. Burgess, as Mama. I tell you that if you were in a meeting with Mr. Burgess and it's at 2:30, he would tell you, I gotta go. Go pick up the granddaughter. And he would go over to Drea School and pick up the granddaughter. Now you can meet with him after 3:30 when he's available, but not between that hour, 2:30 and 3:30. He loved his family very much. He also loved Allen University.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Burgess donated a lot of money to Allen, and he served on many task forces, many committees, and Mr. Burgess used to come and ask me to help him raise money for the Alumni Association. And he would ask that we do ads. And it seems to me, every place I went to solicit an ad, Mr. Burgess had been there and then gotten an ad. That's the kind of person he was. If he wanted to do something, he would do it. Mr. Burgess loved the comment. Mr. Burgess used to call me at least once a week. And I don't think, and we used to talk about the Constitution and bylaws and other things. And I don't think that there is anyone on this board or connected other than maybe Attorney Heiser that knew the Constitution and bylaws like Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess didn't like to waste funds. He did not like to waste funds. He worked so hard to get the penny pass. And one thing that he was concerned about, us wasting money. He said he would go out and contact Richland County members and ask them to vote for the penny. And then we would sometime waste dollars. He didn't like that. Mr. Burgess wanted and left us wanted a world-class transit center. And I would just hope that we would make this happen because he really, really wanted this world-class center. May God bless you. And it was a pleasure knowing Mr. Burgess. I will never, ever forget him.
Rev. Howard?
Thank you. I'm Leon Howard. Mr. Burgess never called me. He would come see me 3 times a day. And a few times he did come, mainly on Saturday and Sunday. He would give me Saturday and Sunday off. And when he didn't show up, I would ask him, where were you? And he said, well, Mama had me locked up. I said, well, at the detention center or at the house? He said at the house. And I'm really gonna miss him. You know, just hard to believe that he's not among us. I mean, like Dr. Mara said, he was so dedicated to Allen University, to the comment, and he was extremely passionate. He cared about people, he cared about his community, and we love him, we're gonna miss him. You know, a day or two before he passed, he came by our shop, and I was teasing. I told my nephew that Mr. Burgess telling him I'm not here. He said, man, come on out. Let's go to Allen. I hear you. So the only place we would go for lunch is Allen University. That's the only place he would have lunch. And we took pictures together that day, some reason. And but you know, love Mr. Burgess. It's his family. Miss Burgess, wonderful young lady, his sister, his daughter. I finally got to meet. Talked about all the time. He loved his son, his grandchildren, he loved his entire family, his community. He's gonna miss him. I thank God that we got to know Mr. Burgess and he placed him in our life and in our community.
Madam Chairwoman, this is Will Brennan.
Yes, Mr. Brennan.
I really wish I could be there today with everybody, Ms. Burgess and your family, to celebrate beautiful life, beautiful energy, and a beautiful citizen that Mr. Burgess was. The funeral ceremony was very touching, very meaningful, and a great participation with your beautiful family. I just want you to know the energy that Mr. Burgess brought wasn't just to the comment. It was to the city, it was to the county, and to the Midlands. And we, I think, I know for sure, my colleague, Councilwoman Herbert, we're going to take his passion forward and continue to support via the city everything he wanted to do for transit, especially this intermodal center, which it was his vision, and we're going to keep pushing it. So again, thank you for sharing your wonderful husband with us.
Yes, Ms. Mood.
I'm Little Mood, and I'm in an advisory seat now from the town of Chapin, but represented Lexington County for a number of years on this board. And Mr. Burgess and I spent a lot of years together on the service committee. And I have to smile thinking about it because sometimes there were things that we came at from very different angles, and we saw things through a different set of eyes, and I really valued that, because I think if we don't have that capacity in public service positions, we're gonna miss something. If everybody's thinking just alike, we're gonna miss something. But he always had a way of, I mean, he would joke about my seat and sitting by him over here, but that was my seat, because that I felt how much he was devoted to. The thing we always saw alike was that the community was the important thing, and the people that we served were the key things. And if we were doing something in a way that would make things better for people in the area, then he was all for it. And I was right there with him. And so I appreciate having this opportunity to let you know that personally, how much I valued him.
And Madam Chairman, I just wanted to add on top of Ms. Moon, you know, when you hung up the phone with Mr. Fergus, you didn't know if you got asked to do something or told to do something. So he had the fine art of
Madam Chair, I'll just speak real briefly, reiterate, I think you used the word devotion, I heard energy. The word that came to mind for me was passion. About this board, this community. I'll never forget the kind of subtle support that he gave me personally, just in comments that he would make, observations that he made about my, membership on the board. And it's been 9 years of shared membership on this board. So I will never forget his passion and his personal comments.
I don't know of, we'd have to look back. I don't know how far we'd have to look back to see a meeting that he missed. It was pretty much 100% attendance at all times and full engagement. All right, well, thank you all for your comments from the board. Anything from staff? Okay, I didn't want to leave you guys out.
Chair.
Yes.
May I?
Yes.
People come in and out of your life all the time, and since being here, I know that going through the process and coming here to work here for the comment and being excited about that, and then having Mr. Fergus here all the time as a guide. If anything had any questions or whatever, that he would always be there and always support, and always ask for a hat from the show Dallas. And finally I got online, I found one, and I gave that to him just prior to Christmas. So it's just some things that you just do for people because they tease you about it, but that they want that, they like that. And he's just a great support advocate, and nobody can really top or beat his commitment to the comment. So really, from my perspective, I really appreciate that, and as well as the rest of the board, because everybody makes up that development. And I'm just thankful for that, and thankful for Mr. Fergus.
All right, well, it feels weird to get business started, but we're all here to move forward with the agenda. So I want to make sure that we honor everybody's time. So number 2 on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. And I'll just ask staff if there's any additional changes recommended. Okay, anything from the board? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So,
Thank you.
second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? Okay, we will take the vote to approve the agenda. Mr. Barnwell?
Yes.
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 Ms. Herbert?
Yes.
Then Howard?
Yes.
Dr. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah.
Ms. Horacio? Yes. Mr. Dante?
Yes.
Mr. Perry? Oh, sorry. Okay. And that will bring us to item 3, our consent calendar. You can see items 3A and B on pages 3 through 8 and 9 through 29 of our packet. Is there a motion regarding the consent calendar? Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote to approve the consent calendar.
Mr. Barwell,
Yes.
Ms. Brennan.
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Rayfield,
Yes,
Mr. Unpain,
Yes.
motion carries.
thank you. That brings us to item 4, our Midlands Transit Riders Association update. I see Mr. Durst, welcome. And we have the microphone set up for you, so great.
Okay, first of all, I get through some business and then I'll come back to something else. I had a writer tell me that last week, the soda cap number 1, the operator of that bus was telling riders that they had to pay $1, but they wouldn't take passes. And apparently that situation was cleared up. But just to reiterate that you can use passes on the bus as well as money. I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about Mr. Fergus. Besides Ms. Mood, I'm probably the person that has worked with him the longest on, and I just want to talk about some of the successes that Mr. Fergus did for the common. First of all, there was the issue about getting IDs for riders that were over the age of 65 or had some sort of disability that required them to pay half price. The Comet at that time wanted to charge $5 for each ID, and Mr. Fergus said, no, these people are most of these people are on fixed incomes. They're not going to be able to afford $5 for the ID. Mr. Fergus pushed it, and we got free IDs for those riders. Secondly, Mr. Fergus was very much responsible for the following routes as they exist today. Routes 22, Route 12, Route 501, Route 701, Route 42, and Soda Cap number 2. He was very instrumental in getting those buses going the way they are, and I can't thank him enough for that. Thirdly, he and I had our differences on occasion over the years, but we fought together to keep the transit center from moving out of downtown out here to Lucius Road. Both of us thought this was ridiculous.
Right.
Riders were going to have to take 2 or 3 transfers to get to places where they were, it would just take one bus. And he and I worked together on that, and I can't thank him enough for that as well. And lastly, I just wanted to say, and this has been said before by some of the board members, but I saw this all the time in meetings, service meetings, board meetings, and elsewhere, that he really cared about the Comet and the riders. It wasn't a put on that he would just come in here and say something. He really, really did. He would go down to Comet Central to check to see whether the 501 and 701 were lining up right across the street. I mean, and he would sit there in his car and count the number of people getting on the bus. That was the kind of guy he was. So my prayer is that all the board members here today, online, will continue his focus about the buses are for the riders. And it's got to be a concerted effort. And so on behalf of the Village Transit Riders, I just want to express our condolences to y'all for your loss. And he just really was a strong advocate for what we were trying to do. And I certainly will miss him. Thank you.
Mr. Durst, I could see a T-shirt or something. The buses are for the riders, right? So thank you. That brings us to the call to the public. I haven't been made aware that we have anybody signed up to speak. Okay, great. Thank you. That will bring us to item 6. We do have a good list of discussion and action items. So we'll start with 6A, the retiree health coverage policy. Remember, this is for the HOML itself. Pages 31 through 33 have information about that. And then I'll just turn to Ms. Andrews.
Good morning, everyone. Just to give you a little history, we recently had our first retiree from the Comet, and as part of, hey, maybe this is something we could do for our retirees, I thought maybe we could help them, with inflation and retirees funds and all this, maybe help them with health coverage. I tossed the idea out, went to the board for it. It passed in the finance committee as recommending to the entire board that we have a retirement policy that will help out retirees pay for some of their health coverage. I have online with us, I'm a member from the JLM Actuarial Agency that would explain how this would impact our books. If you look at pages 31 to 33, like I say, we presented them with several options of whether we pay 50%, none, or 100%. At the grace of Mr. Morris, or Dr. Morris, I'm sorry, he suggested 100%. So, John, if you're online, if you want to take over to give them some kind of history or background of how this would go, I'll pass the torch to you.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews, and thank you, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Yes, I guess this started last summer, and Ms. Andrews contacted us to evaluate several potential options for providing retiree medical benefits. And we looked at 3 different options and presented those to the committee, I guess back in September, I believe. And when we looked at the options, we did several cost projections. We calculated the liability that would go on the books associated with each option, and also the ongoing expense and cash outlay projected for the next 10 years or so for that. And then my understanding is that an option was selected that the board would pay, put in place a plan that would pay 100% of the PIVA premium in retirement for eligible retirees who met the criteria. So Ms. Andrews asked me to attend this morning to address any questions that you might have on that. So I'm happy to do that.
I open the floor if anyone has any questions. They say on page 30 and 31 kind of lists out those criteria that an employee must meet in order to have us subsidize any of their PIVA premium.
Well, I can make a comment. I don't like to share my personal concerns. I try to keep it on a public issue and responsibility. But I had shared at the finance committee meeting that I went to visit my son in Alexandria, Virginia, and took ill. And then it was hospitalized for 3 days. Got a bill for $26,000. Me to pay $26,000. So I called my insurance company, and finally I only had to pay $200. And I said, you know, our employees, they're not retired yet. They're young, but when they do retire, if they don't have some kind of insurance, they're gonna pay a fortune for hospitalization, for being ill, so forth and so on. So I suggest that we pay the 100%.
Thank you. Is that a motion, Dr. Morris?
It can be.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second it for discussion. Further discussion on the suggestion that we pay 100%. Looking to the rest of the board. Okay. Now, I don't see or hear any discussion on this. Are we ready to take a vote? Okay. Yes.
Mr. Barnwell,
Yes.
Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Wheaton,
Yeah.
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
and Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
No.
Mr. Racio,
Yes.
Mr. Unthank,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you all. And I would like to move to amend the agenda. I should have moved to amend the agenda earlier, but to move the chair's report to be next and then return to the rest of the agenda in order to let's start this. So that's my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We'll take the vote to amend the agenda.
Okay, Mr. Barnwell,
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Wheaton,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
and Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Racio,
Yes.
Mr. Unthank,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. So just wanted to say that we appreciate Ms. Burgess so much for being here today. And we also plan at Richland County Council to honor Ms. Burgess and the family with a resolution. So that will be on March the 4th. And so our meetings start at 6 o'clock at 2020 Hampton. So members of the board would be invited, members of staff would be invited to come and show your support as Richland County honors Mr. Fergus's service in this way. Yes. Yes.
I was gonna add something.
Yes.
So, in the month of April, which is actually, the 25th anniversary for the Comet. We have 2 anniversaries, but one is in 23, one is in 25. We are going to dedicate the shelter that is across the street from Allen University to Mr. Fergus. So we'll let you know the exact date of that when that time comes, but wanted to let this body be aware that that is what is planned.
Can I? Okay. Do you want to say anything? I'd like to share. I'll hold this.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And thank you for inviting me to your meeting.
you know that I heard everything that went on, every meeting, before the meeting, after the meeting, and during the meeting. And he loved working with all of you. He might have complained, but he loved it. If he didn't love it, he wouldn't have been here. And he was truly dedicated to the goals of this organization and to the citizens of Columbia who were bus riders. And I'm sure that you can tell that just by his activities, his dedication, and his honoriness, if there is such a word, to this board. So I appreciate what all of you have done to recognize that. And thank you.
Thank you all for allowing that reorganization. That will bring us back to 6B. And this will be the discussion about the fiscal year in 2024 annual comprehensive financial report. Well, I guess we all have our financial report in front of us. And so, Ms. Andrews, do you want to address that as well?
Again, hello, everyone. I have on the line with us our auditor, Ms. Robin, to address any questions you may concern. The audit was also sent out to you by email, so you could look through it, skim through it, come back with any questions. But Robin is here to just give you a quick summation of how we performed in the fiscal year of 2024. So, Ms. Robin.
Hi. Good to be here today. Delighted to see all of you. We are here to discuss the audit report for the year ended 2024. Your current total assets were like $95.7 million. Your total liabilities were $8.4 million. You have a healthy net position of $87 million. However, as you know, $28.8 million of that is in your buses and your infrastructure as far as buildings, equipment, and so have you. You've expended a good portion of your funds this year in federal money to basically do construction work, improving your system, and upgrading the buses. So the fiscal year went well. You've got a nice healthy profit. So which means you should have no problems meeting your financial obligations in the near future. The difficulty comes if the 1% sales tax money goes away. So hopefully they can keep that for a long time. Does anyone have any questions about the audit report?
If not, the motion is to approve our fiscal year 2024 annual comprehensive financial report as presented.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Yes, Dr. Morris.
Andrew, for those of us who have the time to go through this booklet, if we can get this a little earlier, I certainly would appreciate it.
Okay. It was sent out and when Angela sent it the first day. Yeah, we didn't finish until January 30th. So it was right up to the wire, but as soon as it's completed in the future, I'll send it right out to you. You're welcome.
I made the motion.
Your second was Ms. Gordy.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to note, give kudos to Roz and staff on this excellent report. The page, yes, that's page 8 in Roman numerals, the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting by the GFOA. It's an award that I don't know how many years in a row now, but starting to get up there that they've won this award every year. Very impressive, a lot of work. Not just to have clean books, but to have to meet those criteria for the GFOA. So I think some staff deserve kudos for excellent work again this year.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin.
We have a
Thank you
motion,
all.
motion and a second. I believe we're ready to take a vote.
Laura Wilk,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Clayton,
Yes.
Herbert,
Yes.
Sam Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Ratio,
Yes,
Unthank,
Yes.
motion carries.
thank you. That will bring us to 6C, the traffic study by Warner Transportation. Mr. Palchik?
Good afternoon. My name is Boris Palchik. I'm with a company called Route. We are, microphone.
Do we bring the mic over there?
Okay. That's okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, not yet.
Is it on?
I can talk loud. Maybe that'll work.
I want to make sure that it's getting picked up for the people online too.
Okay.
You need to. Gotcha.
Can you?
Let's try it.
Okay, I'll speak
Yeah.
louder.
Also, is it getting picked up for our folks on Zoom?
Yes.
Yes, who are the speakers? They can, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. My name is Boris Palchik. I'm with a company called Route. We are part of the consulting team, the Warner Transportation consulting team that's been looking at several issues in terms of combat operations, on-time performance, and other items. Today, we're going to be talking about potentially reducing the bus lineup at Comet Central. So I want to begin with some background information first, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So the current Comet operations are built around what's called a pulse system. A pulse system is where all the buses come into Comet Central at least once an hour to facilitate transfers, connections, and so on. This is a common approach for systems that have sort of limited frequency. Most of the Comet routes right now operate either hourly or every half hour. If you have a system that operates very frequently, you don't need to worry about a pulse because no matter when you get off a bus at a stop, another bus will come along pretty shortly. But most, mid-sized and smaller systems use a pulse system. So the graphic on the right shows that at 15 past the hour, up to 14 buses come into Comet Central at any given time. So that's a lot of buses that are kind of, filling up the block or a few blocks around Comet Central. So that's the primary issue that we're looking at. The goals and objectives of our study were to find a way to reduce the number of buses that meet at Comet Central while also making sure the system is efficient, effective, and equitable as possible. That was the goal that was set out in the RFQ that we responded to. So those two items, the reducing number of buses and making sure the system is effective and equitable and so on, those are a little bit in tension with one another, because if we didn't have to worry about the efficiency, effectiveness, and so on part, then there's a lot of ways to reduce the number of buses. You can just move the pulse point somewhere else in the system. If that's, if you didn't have to worry about the ramifications of that. But we were trying to find a balance between those two kind of competing goals. So there were several possible solutions that we looked at. The first was, as I mentioned, relocating the primary pulse point elsewhere. Another possibility was to stagger the schedules. In other words, not have a single pulse, but rather break the pulse up into more than one kind of mini pulse. A third thing that we looked at was finding a way to redesign the network to sort of de-emphasize downtown as a kind of key location in the functionality of the network. And there's a lot there. I'll explain that in a minute, but that was another possible solution we looked at. And then finally, some combination of these other three. So we're going to go through each of those and kind of ask the question, does it make sense to do these various solutions? So the first one we looked at was relocating the primary pulse point. But what we found was that Comet Central is really almost ideal in terms of location. It's a destination-rich environment. In other words, it takes people where they want to go anyway, because within a few blocks of Comet Central, you have a lot of the types of destinations that transit riders need to go to. You have medical facilities, you have social services, you have employment, government offices, universities, and so on. So it's a place where people want to go anyway. And that's important because when you're trying to design transit in a way to appeal to more riders, you want to make it as simple as possible, as convenient as possible. So if you can provide more what's called one-seat rides, that's better. In other words, rather than forcing a transfer on a person, getting people to where they want to go anyway with one ride. Also, Comet Central has a good pedestrian infrastructure around it. The downtown area is fairly walkable. It has sidewalks, crosswalks, and the like. That also helps allow for more one-seat rides. In other words, people, once they make it downtown, can make their way to their final destination fairly easily. And then finally, Comet Central is centrally located. So from the standpoint of equity, it allows for competitive travel patterns for people throughout the region. If you have the key hubs sort of in one corner of the region, some people benefit, but other people don't. Having a central location allows for a more equitable approach to mobility. And the recommendation really that we came up with is to maintain the primary hub at Comet Central, but to focus on reducing peak buses and passenger volumes downtown. There are many ways to do that. So the second option we looked at for meeting that balance between reducing buses and still have effective service is to stagger schedules. So what that means, as I mentioned, is rather than having a single pulse where everybody comes together all at once, tries to transfer all their buses and then all the buses go back out, maybe there's an opportunity to strategically split the pulse into more than one pulse. We did an assessment of the current transfer patterns, and this assessment found two things. Number one, it did show the benefit of the pulse because there is a lot of transferring going on. So when you have a lot of transferring, it is good for all the buses to come together at one time. But what we also found is that some routes have a lot more transfer activity than others. So if you see this kind of red area on the right, that's where you have the highest transfer activity, and it's between the 100 series routes. So if you guys are familiar with the Comet system, there are local routes that tend to be single and double digit numbers, and then there's the 100 series routes, which are sort of the workhorse routes of the system. They're the most frequent routes. They have the highest ridership in the system. That's where those routes are where a lot of transfer activities are happening. And so it's important that if we break the pulse, we keep those routes together in the pulse. What that could look like is this image here. So in this image, you see the 100 series routes, this group of routes here. We've tried to keep them together. So when 100 series route comes into Comet Central, all the 100 series routes come into Comet Central. That preserves that transfer opportunity between the highest ridership routes. What we've done, though, is we've split the local routes off by about 15 minutes. So in effect, if a person comes in on a Comet Central route, once an hour, there's this kind of window, transfer window. It's approximately a 30-minute window. In that window, a person arrives on a 100 series route, within 15 minutes, they can transfer to a local route. If they arrive on a local route, within 15 minutes, they can transfer to 100 series routes. So they can transfer from here to here within 15 minutes, or from here to here within 15 minutes. So it's still a fairly compact window. It's not the exact pulse for all the routes, but in many ways it's a better approach because right now the pulse sometimes struggles. If one route is late, then it kind of throws everybody off because a bus has to be held and so on. So in some ways it's more predictable to have this approach where you sort of split the pulse into kind of a couple of mini pulses. So this approach would allow us to get the bus volumes down from 14, which is the peak now, down to 8. So 8 buses would be the kind of high watermark of number of buses coming into Comet Central at one time. Okay, so then the next question we looked at is, does it make sense to de-emphasize Comet Central as the primary hub? So staggering the existing schedule certainly helps reduce the number of buses that show up at any one time. It doesn't necessarily help advance the other goals, the efficiency, effectiveness, and equitable nature of the other routes in general. To understand that, we really have to take a deep dive into understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each existing route, what they're doing well, what they're doing less well. So we did a detailed market and service analysis, and we identified several opportunities that would help both reduce the downtown bus volumes and improve the overall user experience. So some examples of that. So currently, some routes have no direct access to grocery stores or super stores like Target, Walmart, and so on. And so because that's the case, passengers sometimes have to transfer routes just to meet their basic needs. So there's an illustration here. There's two routes shown on the screen, 6 and 11. The Route 11 route has a food line on it. The Route 6 is fairly close by in parallel, but it does not directly serve the food line. To get to that food line, which from most people's perspective is pretty close, people actually have to go all the way downtown and transfer from the 6 to the 11 and go back out. That can be time consuming, and it really creates some barriers for people that are time sensitive. So what we recommend is the network can be restructured in a way that ensures that every single route has direct access to a grocery store, supermarket, superstore, Walmart, those kind of stores. This can be done in a couple of different ways, either by directly rerouting the routes or what's called interlines. Interlines is where two routes come together at a particular point, and the bus essentially changes its head sign. So people don't have to get off the bus. They have an automatic transfer from one route to the other. Places like grocery stores are a really good place to do those interlines. Two routes come in, both of them come to the grocery store. People can transfer if they need to, but for many people, that grocery store is their destination. So have those transfers happen where people want to go anyway. Direct access to supermarkets is really key to maximizing the utility of every route and reduces the need for transfers and reduces just the need to go downtown at all for people that are, right now in some cases are just going downtown because they're forced to make a transfer. In addition, a diverse mix of ridership generators ensures that every route is as well utilized throughout the day as possible. So some of the routes right now are very peaky. In other words, they have strong ridership at peak times because they're designed around a particular destination. In the case of Route 6, the high school. So you have strong ridership when the high school gets in, strong ridership when the high school gets out, but fairly low ridership otherwise. Making the route connect to more of these key ridership generators allows for ridership activity all throughout the day, makes every route a stronger route, makes the whole network a stronger network for it. Okay, another example of how do we de-emphasize Comet Central. Several Comet routes right now have long stretches of one-way service. So this is an example illustrating Route 91, which serves the airport and one of the MTC campuses. This route has a big clockwise segment. So just as an example, there's a large apartment complex called Forest Brook Apartments. That location is very close to the airport. It's a great place where people might want to live if they work at the airport. The problem is the bus does not go in the counterclockwise direction. So somebody who lives fairly close to the airport can't conveniently get to work if that's where they want to work without first going downtown and transferring to the bus coming back the other way. So that is, again, forcing people to go downtown. The network can be restructured in a way to maximize bidirectional service. So splitting Route 91 into two separate routes, right now we're calling it 91N and 91S, where each of those runs bidirectionally along the respective corridors, and they connect at Midlands Tech. Again, that interline I was telling you about earlier, that allows for bidirectional service, which again allows for shorter trips, allows for more direct trips, and reduces the need for downtown transfers. Okay, another way to de-emphasize Comet Central is to look at redundancy. So right now, there's the regular routes, there's the 100 series routes, and there's the soda cap routes. Soda cap routes are uniquely branded, they have a different fare structure and so on. But what we found is the soda cap routes generally serve corridors that are already served by other routes. And they're not really resonating in terms of generating really strong ridership on their own. Most of the soda cap routes have less than 5 passengers per trip. So what we would recommend is considering eliminating the soda cap routes and reinvesting those resources into ways that serve the entire network a little bit better. This would help reduce peak volumes by reducing the number of buses. The soda cap buses wouldn't exist. They wouldn't necessarily go downtown. You can still preserve the key features of the soda cap routes, and the key features of those routes are higher frequency service. You can still preserve that by staggering schedules. So in other words, if you have 2 routes, each of those routes runs hourly. If you stagger their schedules, you effectively have half-hour service in a corridor because one route runs and the other route runs. So you can still preserve the high frequency that the soda cap routes offer and reduce the volume of people and buses downtown. So then the one last thing we want to show in terms of de-emphasizing Common Central. Parts of the service area, the common service area, are difficult to serve effectively with fixed route service. The reason for that is for fixed route service to work well, you need density, and you also need a supportive pedestrian environment. You can have the most frequent service in the world, but if people can't get to the bus stops because there's no sidewalks or the walk distance is too long, the ridership is still not going to be very strong. And so the rule of thumb is kind of densities of above 5 people and or jobs per acre to really support fixed route service. If you look at some of the outer lying areas north of I-20, for example, you really get into areas that are very suburban, lower density, don't always have sidewalks, don't always have crosswalks and so on. So the solution is to consider a new service type, a service type called microtransit. Microtransit is a term maybe some of you have heard of. If you haven't heard about it yet, you'll probably hear about it a lot in the near future. It's a new kind of trend throughout the country, even throughout the world, where you apply a service that's an on-demand, an app-based on-demand service. It's very similar to Uber and Lyft, but it uses transit buses, small buses or vans to provide that on-demand service. The difference between Uber and Lyft and microtransit is microtransit is a shared use service. So instead of picking up one person, dropping him off, picking up the next person, dropping him off, you can pick up 2 or 3 people at a time, drop 1 or 2 off, and so on. So it is a transit service and a shared use service. So microtransit can be very effective both as a local circulator and as a first and last mile connector. And both of those things can reduce the need for some people and some buses to go downtown. So in this example here, there's a Walmart and a Midlands Tech College. If a person today needs to go from the Midlands Tech to the Walmart, they may not be able to get there directly without making a transfer. Within this zone, anyone within that white zone shown can get to all the types of destinations they would need for their daily needs. They can get to a Walmart, to a grocery store, to medical facilities, to a college, and so on. So they can do everything they need to do just within that zone and never come downtown. On the other hand, if they want to go downtown, microtransit does allow first and last mile connections to the more regional routes. For example, at Midlands Tech, they can transfer to another route. Your question? Okay. All right, almost done here. So the network that we came up with, this is just sort of an example, but the network that we came up with looks on the left you have the current network. On the right, you have kind of this reimagined network that is a streamlined network with simplified, the fixed route service is really concentrated in the area of the region where it can do the greatest good, the more transit-friendly, pedestrian-friendly region. And then the outlying area is instead served by microtransit service. So some of the features of this network are you can reduce the peaks at Common Central in a few different ways. The revised network would have bidirectional service on every route, so eliminating one-way loops or replacing one-way loops with bidirectional service. Strong anchors, every route serving a grocery store or supercenter, reducing redundancy where possible, and staggering schedules. So that staggering schedules concept, essentially, this is what a schedule that we could envision would look like. It would have the 100 series routes still all coming in together to allow for those transfers. The local routes come in at 2 separate pulses. So essentially, within every hour, there's 4 pulses rather than just 1. And this allows you to preserve the most frequent connections, also allow for most passengers to make connections within 10 minutes, and no connection will be longer than 40 minutes in span. So this scenario here reduces the number of buses at Common Central to a maximum of 6. So this is kind of a second option compared to the first one I talked about earlier. So there's really 3 options I wanted to compare. The current system, which results in 14 buses at Common Central. Scenario 1, which changes nothing in terms of the alignments, but just changes the schedules to stagger them. That reduces the number of buses to 8. And then the third scenario, which both de-emphasizes Common Central and staggers the schedule and introduces microtransit service, that gets the maximum number of buses down to 6. So I'll stop there. I'll take any questions, and then I'll turn it over to Reese, I guess, for any motion. Yes, sir.
you have two buses going to Midland Tech. One is late. Does that throw everything off?
So the way that the network is envisioned at key hubs like Midland Tech, so using the airport example, so here you have the Midland Tech airport campus is here. These are actually two separate routes. They're labeled as two separate routes, 91N and 91S. That's how we're labeling right now. But those routes actually interline. So that means that one comes in and it changes its head sign and goes out as the other route. That ensures connections because it's the same vehicle. So you could have, to those two routes, you would have two vehicles assigned to them, one going kind of clockwise, one going counterclockwise. Each time they get Midland Tech, they change their head sign. The reason we change the head sign is it's easier for people to understand what a route is doing. You can, in the schedule book, you can show, even if it's operated by a single bus, you can show it as two separate routes for people to understand the 91S is serving this corridor, on the Boston Road corridor, Airport Boulevard corridor. The other one is serving the Flat Springs corridor. They're separate routes, but operationally, behind the scenes, it may be the same bus doing both routes. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. That 91 still goes over there by Lexington Hospital, am I correct?
So the hospital is over here.
I got doctor over there, and I got to go to my doctor.
Yeah, the hospital is over here. So yeah, all what we've done is it is a smaller footprint, you could say, for the network. In other words, it's a thinner network, but we made sure to preserve ridership to all of the heaviest ridership locations and all the key ridership generators, things like schools, hospitals, grocery stores. We ensured that all of those destinations are served. In fact, they're served better in many cases because you have bi-directional service. The Lexington Hospital right now is only served in one direction. So people have to ride in a big loop to get to and from the hospital.
Exactly, because it comes in the front of it and it goes around the side there.
Right, so under this scenario, you have bi-directional service to the hospital.
The reason I asked that question, because a lot of my doctors that used to be over at Baptist, they all moved over there and they merged. The older doctors retired, so that was why I was asking the question, because I still go over there. All right. Sure, I got my transportation.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I really think that speaks to the Comet being responsive to, when things move around, how people, where people go and when changes, then we should be responsive to that and be thinking about that. So, yeah. Anything further from, I see Ms. Herbert has her hand up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering, is this I don't know if any action is supposed to take place, but I do believe this should be referred to the service committee. Because although it may look efficient on paper, I think we really need to get into the nuts and bolts also so that we can be prepared, because people will come to us with questions. And I think we need a deeper dive. So I'm hoping that this will be referred, or that was the intention.
Do you want staff to speak to that, or is that just board action?
I'm gonna make a motion to refer it to the service committee.
Thank you.
I'll second that whenever that motion period comes.
Okay.
Okay. I think we just did it. Any further discussion on that? Okay, we'll take a vote.
Mr. Barnwell,
Yes.
Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Ms. Clayton,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Racio,
Yes.
Mr. Unthank,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, are we complete on this item? Thank you so much, and I'm sure we will be continuing to work with you on learning. Okay, that will bring us to 6D, our service update with Mr. Cooksey.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Everybody's doing well. Right, here we go. Anyway, thank you for this time today. Just want to highlight a few things. Recently, we were recognized by RATP-Dev for our excellence in safety in the areas of reducing our accident frequency rate
and our injury frequency rate. So in addition to our global award we won from the company, I just wanted to mention that the great work that the team is doing in the areas of safety as we kind of continue to strive and push towards that. Something special today, I wanted to, luckily we have an opportunity to have our operator of the year here. We only have a few minutes with her. She has to get back out on the bus, but I did want her just to come in and us to give a chance to celebrate her. Ms. Tammy, can you stand up for a minute? Ms. Tammy Osby is our operator of the year, and we just love her. She is helpful. She does everything that you ask her to do and more. And she just epitomizes the professional bus operator. So thank you for everything you've done. And I also included in the report a Columbia, really an operator recruiting plan. You know, and looking back at the data from 2024, you know, what were our biggest challenges? And, you know, just like the rest of the nation, you know, our challenges were headcount. It was bus operators, finding those qualified bus operators. It was a challenge. And so I put a plan together, you know, and the reason I did this, you know, we really need to shore that up for the rest of this year and going forward. But also we need to help with improve our reliability. Critical to have those operators there as well as any missed trips. So improve safety, kind of build morale. Because think about it, you know, less operators, more driving time, there's more time in the seat for them. It can be stressful, it's a stressful job. So we want to make sure we counter that by continuing to be very aggressive in that area. I had an opportunity to put the RATP Dev in our hiring portion of this to pilot a program called Attitudes, Values, and Personality, which is a pre-hire assessment. So we're doing that here at the Comet, but they're also doing that in Raleigh. We're the two organizations in the company that are taking a look at, you know, looking at work style, performance, attitudes, honesty, integrity, safety, risk. These are all the things we're trying to measure to really get more of the Tammy Osbys that are operator of the year that was here. So that's been going about 2 months. I hope to have more information about that, and also partnering with Veterans Transition Services. As a former veteran, Mr. Mack as well, we know the importance and the work ethic of those who have served in the military, and what an opportunity to come and drive a bus. If, you know, we want to make sure they know that this is an option for them. So in closing on that, I mean, our on-time performance, I'm very excited to be working with Warner Transportation and this going to committee. We finished the year at around 71.2, and for fixed route and paratransit, 86.4. We're looking again forward to working with them in the Comet on getting us to the last mile in those numbers. So again, we're excited about that. Again, we had a strong month. We did see a slight uptick in customer concerns. The positive for the month of January is we did see an improvement in our reliability for the month. So always like to see that. And I've got to give kudos to, and Mr. Pearl may mention it, but I wanted to mention that the most recent ice storms that came through, I got to commend the operators. I mean, this staff is incredible. You know, bravo to them. I mean, they were here the morning of, bright-eyed and ready to perform the service to the community. And we actually were able to get out on time, safely, no accidents, no incidents. So just bravo to them, and it's a dedication to commitment. So that concludes my report. I'm open for any questions.
You got some good drivers out there. I can say that because I ride the bus all the time, different ones to different doctors' offices. And they're very caring about the customers. I noticed that quite a bit. And sometimes you have gotten some rude people on there, you know what I'm saying? But they took care of it the right way. Mm-hmm. See you later. I thank y'all for that.
You're welcome. So I'm open for any questions.
See anything from the board? I don't see anybody's hand on the screen. All right, thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that'll bring us to 6. Well, Mr. Pearl has 3 updates in a row, so I'm just gonna name those out and you can let us know when you're switching gears. How about that? Okay, so the Lucius and River update, the purchase of revenue vehicles, DART vehicles, and the security contract renewal. And so, Mr. Pearl, if you will start with the Lucius and River update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I continue to work with Terracom on the property and what any developments that are coming up from that. And we have not completed a final report yet. I'm hoping that at the end of this month, beginning of next month, we'll have a final report from Terracom, what the schedule is of what we need to do with the property, and then also have some recommendations to the board as to what the most purposeful part or what we can repurpose the property for. So there will be a complete report on that next month.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl, Brownstone, are they still active or are they finished?
We still work with them, but that's just through the state. We have to do some adjustments to the drainage. So that's the only thing that we're working with them on because they were initially involved with the project, that they've got to carry that piece on, and then we're not involved with them anymore.
We have to pay them in addition.
We have not received anything additional from them, no. So. If no additional questions, I'd like to move on to F, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
The purchase of the revenue vehicles, and the purchase of the revenue vehicles was sent to the Finance Committee, and there are 2 vendors, Interstate Transportation Equipment and Palmetto Bus Sales. And the committee moved, so the staff recommended Palmetto Bus Sales. The Finance Committee directed staff to move forward with Interstate Transportation. I would like to advise the board that Palmetto has updated their delivery to 60 to 90 days. And the difference between the local cost is what the Comet would pay is $1,365 per vehicle. And the grant is $9,249 for each vehicle. We do get those, we would get those a lot sooner. And when I got here in November of 23, I started, the first thing that we do when we go to a new property is what does your vehicle situation look like? So started investigating that, looking into that in December of 23. I went back, researched my email. So just to confirm that the process started basically when I got here, and I started working with Ms. Ransom on grants and what we can do to maximize the benefit of the grants. And then also worked with internal stakeholders, RATB Dev and TCS on the development of the vehicle specs. So as I delve into looking at the vehicle status, and these are just paratransit vehicles that we're speaking about today. If I look back, so the useful life standards of a paratransit vehicle is 7 years for 200,000 miles. Most of the vehicles are over 300,000 miles. So I started looking back, when you look at the development of replacement vehicles, you start to go backwards, and it came out to where I start backing out the mileage, and it comes up to 3.9 years, or 4 years ago. The development should have taken place, and we should have been moving forward with procuring vehicles then. That way we don't have high miles like we do now increased maintenance cost, increased parts cost. So along with all of that, what I would like to do for next board meeting is to give the board a state of the fleet and where we're at and what the process is, the development and the mileage, and really give a thorough view of where we're at and why we're doing what we're doing. And I would get, again, revert back to the staff recommendation of Palmetto bus sales, and then the finance committee directed staff to move forward with interstate transportation. Palmetto bus sales 60 to 90 days, interstate delivery 180 to 210 days. That informs the board of everything that they need to know.
Yes, I expect some conversation about this one. So I saw Ms. Mood first.
My question really was, if I understood correctly, that the staff came with one recommendation and that the finance committee made a different choice. That's a little bit, I mean, I just would like to understand better what the reason for that.
I think Dr. Morris wanted to speak, so maybe you will speak to that. Yes.
Through you, Chair, to Pearl, I understand that he has said that.
Will you speak up a little bit?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I understand that Mr. Pearl said that Palmetto has updated their charges, and the difference now is about $1,000 between the two. Did you talk with Interstate about updating theirs, since we know that bus companies are quite competitive? And then the other piece is on the time. Did you talk with Interstate about when they can deliver? Since you went back to Palmetto, I wonder whether or not you went back to Interstate.
Thank you, Dr. Morris, and that's a great question. And I did not approach Palmetto. Palmetto approached me and let me know that they have updated their delivery date from notice to proceed to 60 to 90 days. And it still remains the same. We treat all vendors the same. And when the quote was requested from Interstate, that is their expected delivery time, and that has not changed.
Well, I know that there is a difference of about $87,000 on the first report you gave us. And now, am I hearing you say the difference is much less?
The difference, what I tried to do is for the board is to break it down for what local money is, and then what the grant funding is. So the grant funding, the local funding, the difference with local cost is a total of $9,561.57, or for 7 vehicles, $1,365.94 each, local money. Total for the grants, if we're looking at the grant side of it, is $64,743.82, or $9,249.12 per vehicle in grant funding on blessings.
Since we are trying to save as much of the Richland County taxpayers money as possible, as a member of the Finance Committee, I still would suggest that we go with international, interstate.
Further discussion from the board, yes.
Just to clarify, I think to Ms. Mood's question, initially, Finance Committee heard this and agreed with staff, chose the vendor. Between the meeting and the board meeting, I think there was some more discussion and concern about the fact that it was a higher price, even though, so we had chosen the vendor with higher price. So it got sent back to Finance Committee. The Finance Committee reversed its decision, its initial decision to go with the lower price vendor. There was disagreement on the committee. I will say it wasn't universally, it was not unanimous. The question really is, do you go with price alone or do you go with some other considerations? We had talked about the fact that the lower price vendor is probably going to have more in the way of maintenance costs because different set of specs that we don't currently have stocked and just different things. And then also the turnaround time is big. So we have a pretty aging DART fleet, and the committee as a whole decided that cost was more important than the kind of totality. The one thing that, for me personally, that I keep coming back to is that both of these were on state contracts. So the state has already done the procurement, and both are. We really don't have to do our own procurement here. But we're kind of acting like we are. So that's my equivocation on this. I think at this point, I defer to staff, but I think it's important that we act quickly, whatever we do, because they need those buses. And even if we go forward with this tranche of buses, they may need to come back quickly with another request, just because those DART buses are really aging and are beyond their useful life. So that's to clarify kind of where we've been. It has gone back and forth between the Finance Committee and the board now a couple of times.
Yes, can I just be sure I understood? So the current recommendation of the final recommendation for the Finance Committee is for a lower price cost per bus, but additional cost in terms of stocking and maintenance and all that.
That's to be clear that we don't have actual numbers on that. That's anecdotal from staff, both that and the turnaround time. What actually happens may differ from what the projection is, but I think in staff recommendation they were including things that aren't as quantitative.
Just the price of the bus.
Right.
Thank you. So I also have concerns about, spending money up front versus maintenance and upkeep on the back end and weighing those two things. And then I also just, in consideration of, again, this aging fleet, and I know that there's been, advanced work to get us to this point where we can have this discussion, but want to make sure that we can really, really get these vehicles out timely. So that those are kind of my two main concerns. And then, for about $1,000 a piece, which is not nothing, but in the scheme of, these kinds of larger specific types of vehicles, I just don't know if that weighs out for me. But again, we can, the board will vote, and like Mr. Smith said, both of these suppliers are on state contract. And so, we will, however the vote goes will be fine.
Madam Chair, it just seems to me that you have business deal like this, and one come to you. It seems to me that you should go to the other one and try to work out a deal. And if you don't do that, then you're saying, I made the decision to go with the state as to go to Palmetto, as opposed to letting the board decide which one to go with if you bring all the information. And I think that we don't have all the information.
Thank you. I see Ms. Herbert has her hand up.
Well, this is more of a comment for the ADD people out there like me. When we're having discussions like this, it would be very helpful if we had a piece of paper with some information. I don't remember things like I used to. So in the future, if we could have, and maybe if it's in the packet, let me know. But I think it's helpful to help analyze if we have something in writing.
Thank you, Ms. Herbert. Yeah, we do have a couple of pages in the packet associated with this, I think, but those, when we're saying numbers out loud and I'm scribbling, sometimes it's hard to keep up. Yes, Ms. Muth?
I just have one more question, and that is, don't remember if I ever knew. Does this come to the board as a purchase because of the amount of money? Is there a level, or because certainly the board doesn't approve every purchase that the staff makes, and so what is it that makes this a board decision versus just a management decision?
Thank you, Ms. Muth. That's a great question, and that it's twofold. It is, we want to make sure that staff is very transparent with the board in bringing everything to the board. It does go over my dollar limit, and it's well over my dollar limit, and I would not feel comfortable, even if it were in my dollar limit, to procure vehicles of this dollar amount. So we just want to make sure that we're transparent with the board on procurements.
Further discussion? Okay. I guess we have the recommendation coming from Finance Department. So would that serve as our motion?
I would think so.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Madam Chair, since we do have it coming from the finance, the board is to vote it up for them.
Thank you. Yes. Would you like to speak, Attorney?
I think that's fine. It's just, I guess what I'm kind of thinking about, it seems like there are two recommendations, one from staff, one from the committee.
Okay.
But I think the motion from the finance committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can we just state that out loud for the record as well? What the recommendation is from the
recommendation from the finance committee is that the board approve purchasing the buses from Interstate.
Thank you. And because that comes from committee, it doesn't need a second. Right. Okay, great. Further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll take the vote.
Mr. Barnwell,
Yes.
Mr. Brennan,
He had to leave.
Ms. Gleaton,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Representative Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
No.
Ms. Racio,
No.
Mr. Unthank,
No.
Do it again.
motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks everybody for your work on that. And that'll bring us to 6G, the security contract renewal. Sorry, we're still on you, Mr. Pearl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last year, we had started having some issues at beginning of the year with a security firm, and we weren't getting the service that we needed or wanted. And we have, during last year, modified the agreement and went away with the provider at that time and went on an emergency basis with another provider. And what we're asking to do, and that's G&I Security currently, what we're requesting is to extend the agreement from January 31st or February 1st through June. That's a 5-month agreement, and that allows us time to properly go through the procurement process in order to obtain a vendor for the longer term. This, again, is for 5 months. It continues the agreement on an emergency basis. And the compensation is the request on the agreement is for $240,000. The total amount is less than that, about $232,000. We allotted a little bit of money in there in case there are special events that we need security or we need additional security. So that is the request, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So any questions from the board?
What's the security hours that? They start early in the morning?
Yes, ma'am, they do. Early in the morning and late into the evening. When we're open, we have security.
Yeah, I've noticed it down there. Sometimes I'm coming through there at that time.
It's 5:45 a.m. until 10:30 at night.
Gotcha.
They've been doing a phenomenal job for us.
They don't have all the issues that they used to have down there. It's been cleaned up. I know that for a fact.
Right. Anything further? And this needs a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay. Moved, seconded. All right. Any further discussion? Great, we'll take a vote.
Mr. Barnwell,
Yes.
Ms. Brennan,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Gracia,
Yes.
Mr. Unthank,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. That will bring us to number 7, 6H. I'm sorry, Ms. Bonner Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this has to do with a request for I guess it would be a policy change, or not even change, a policy that the comment currently does not have, and it pertains to our advertising. So in the past, there are certain things we don't advertise. We don't advertise cigarettes. We don't advertise liquor on any of our assets. And I'm speaking particularly about the buses and how they're wrapped in our shelters. And in the past, we have had a precedent where we have denied attorneys from advertising on our buses or shelters. But it's not a policy. It's just something that we kind of didn't do. And recently, Gateway has entered into contract with a law firm to advertise on our buses, and it went through because we don't have a policy that says they cannot. So we'd like the board to weigh in on that. If moving forward, there's going to be a policy to prohibit law firms from advertising, then we need to say that. And if not, then we need to allow whoever, even if they're a law firm, to advertise.
Thank you for bringing that up.
What about the shelter? Are you talking about they be advertising where people can go to the shelter? Is that what you're talking about?
No, on the shelters, the shelters themselves. You know how we have advertising on those?
The bus shelter.
The bus shelter.
Oh, the bus shelter.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I got you. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and the bus wraps and things like that.
Okay.
And just as an additional note to that, and this would not be the comic's responsibility, but law firms that want to advertise, they have to have their advertisement get approved by the Supreme Court under our ethics.
Okay.
Because there's certain things that lawyers can't do in advertisements. So, it's just an additional element there.
They need to follow the law, right?
Interesting point. Yeah, Mr. Smith. I'm sorry. Yes.
Is it our responsibility to make sure that they've done that? They've done it properly?
I wouldn't think so. Because no, it's not the comic's responsibility, but it's the lawyer's responsibility. But you might not know, right?
So
I could ask a question, so yeah, so your question is, could we revise the policy to the
If that is the will of the board.
so does that open up a can of worms? I mean, you have attorneys, and what is the downside? I can imagine some things, but what is the downside?
This was before me, so I think there was conversation in a board meeting to not allow it, but it was never put into a form, in the form of a policy.
Okay, thank you. So I have Mr. Smith and then Ms. Herbert.
Madam Chair, through you to Pam. Is there any problem precluding an entire, legally, from precluding an entire, sector from advertising? I can imagine that if we were to say a particular type of attorney couldn't, that would be problematic, but.
No, I don't think that, like, if you said no for example, no cigarettes, no alcohol, you can preclude because it's part of you protecting your brand. It's a.
Sure.
But.
So it doesn't expose us to anything by precluding law firms as such.
Thank you. Ms. Herbert?
I was just wondering the things that we do not allow now, are they industry, I guess, certain professionals because it sounds like they're items that we just don't want the comment to be associated with. We don't have exceptions for what type of businesses can advertise with us, or do we?
I don't think that there's a policy at all. It's just kind of been what they've been doing. But for example, if you're talking about industry, certainly you wouldn't want like strip clubs advertising on the bus, So I think sounds like you're gonna need to develop a policy and then bring that to the board.
And may I add, I had a board member call and say some of their associates who were attorneys were concerned because they saw a law firm advertising on one of our buses, and in the past they had been told no.
Right.
So whatever you all decide, it'll be from this point forward.
Thank you. Just thinking this through, would this be something that we could, that the board directly could direct Mr. Pearl to have a policy crafted and then present before the board? Would that and then asking another question, should that, it's not really a finance or service committee issue, so I don't think it fits well into a committee structure per se. So maybe it is for the board as a whole. Yes, Dr. Morris.
Madam Chair, I think that this should be referred to our attorneys and let them come back and tell us what is right and what is wrong.
With drafting a policy, right, and perhaps taking a look, so I can get Mr. Pearl to take a look at maybe what some of the other bus systems are doing in other markets.
I would be very interested in seeing if there are other policies. Yes.
Outdated. It does need to be updated. It does not include
yes
what Ms. Bino Reed is talking about. So if that is the direction that we need to move forward in, we can add that to that policy and just update.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. The current advertising policy does need to be updated because it more than likely we will be resoliciting that contract or making some changes, and the current contract refers to the advertising policy, so they need to match each other. So it does need to be updated. It does exclude some things, and because we are federally funded, there are some requirements that the FDA has about what can be advertised is included in there. So there may be language that covers it, but we don't have any language in there referencing the South Carolina Supreme Court, which may need to be updated too.
Thank you. Does someone want to, I'd entertain a motion, or I'd be happy to go for it myself. Okay, how about move to direct Mr. Pearl to work with staff and ComEd attorneys to update or to suggest updates to the current advertising policy.
Bring it back to the board.
And bring it back to the board. Thank you for that friendly amendment.
Move for that.
Great. So motion, we have several seconds, I think. Okay, you'll claim it? Okay, great. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote.
Mr. Farwell,
Yes.
Brennan, Ms. Gleaton,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Gracia,
Yes.
Mr. Umpink,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you for bringing that before us. Now that brings us to the motions period. I don't think we have any motions. Okay. That'll bring us to our progress reports. I've already done mine, but I want to pass it to Mr. Smith for the Finance Committee because he has a personal thing to share. And then I don't know if whatever business the Finance Committee is. Okay.
The Finance Committee did meet in January. The two motions that we dealt with in the discussion period were heard by the Finance Committee. And so I think everybody kind of is familiar with what the committee did last month. We also received our normal report from staff on performance through, I believe it was November, and then DVE performance as well. So standing reports that we received, all of which were positive through that point in the year. So again, kudos to staff. But as Chair Tracio said, a personal announcement, which is that with this meeting, I'll be stepping away from the board. It's with mixed emotions, especially given what we did earlier in the meeting, honoring the memory of this. Lots of good memories on this board. Trying times, positive times, lots of growth. I'm really grateful for you all. So I'm, as you know, the representative from the city of Forest Acres. I've been in that position for 9 years. The city for 11, but 9 years on the board. And I recently made the decision to accept another position. So I'm equally sad to leave the city. It's been a really difficult decision. It's a great place to work. If anybody knows a good finance professional that's looking for a great job, please send
Not any of ours.
send them our way to the city. And I'll be with the city for the balance of the month. So I'm still sort of around if anybody needs anything from me. I did want to introduce our mayor, Tom Andrews, who is visiting. He will take my place on the board, and he brings a lot of really great leadership, experience, very even keeled, will serve the board very well. He's an attorney by trade, so I think brings a lot of strength in that regard to this board. So I hope you welcome him as much as you have me over these years, and I know that he will serve the common well.
And we'll be in touch about committee assignments. All right. Yes, Dr. Morris.
I just would like to say, really appreciate the effort that Mr. Smith has put in with the Finance Committee over the years. I've learned a lot from him, and I was anticipating learning some more from him. Hopefully, I can call him up when I need to.
Please do.
There we go. Thank you. Does that conclude your update?
That concludes my report.
Okay. That'll bring us to 8B, our intermodal committee updates. Mr. Brennan shared that he did not have an update for that committee. So that'll move us forward to the executive staff updates. We have heard from Mr. Pearl. Is there anything further?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I stated earlier, I'll be presenting I'll take that to the service committee first, the state of the fleet and what that looks like and what the progress is going to be going forward with purchasing vehicles and making sure that our fleet gets up to date timely. I've attended Transit Association of South Carolina board meetings, CMCOG meetings, participated in the CD renewal conference call, attended the Columbia Urban League's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. breakfast, attended a February City of Columbia Council meeting, as well as the Richland County Council meeting, and just last night attended the Forest Acres City Council meeting. So just getting out there and getting out to the public and meeting everybody. For operations, Ms. Bowers monitored bus stops and shelters on Sumter, Pendleton, Hardin, and Rosewood, prepared and presented the report for the Transportation Penny Advisory Committee, organized and performed monthly facility inspection walkthroughs, and under customer experience for Ms. Geddes, performed 90-day evaluations for 2 employees. That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Questions? Okay, hearing and seeing none. That'll bring us to our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Andrews. Have I been overlooking this? Have you always had an IT staff report too, or is this okay? Great. It's just me just now noticing. Okay.
I'm actually over IT and HR now that okay. But and everything that is those 3 departments I kind of outlined here. So I won't repeat any of it, but if you have any questions about anything you see, I'm here to answer them. And for the sake of time, thank you guys for approving my the retiree policy and our annual financial report. It's been a pleasure always do that.
Okay, thank you. That will bring us to our Civil Rights Officer, Dr. Prince.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was going to say that in the report on pages 297 through 298, there was some information that was replaced. I don't know, Ms. Davis, did you?
Yes, I will
Okay.
hand that out.
So there's a new replacement for those pages, but just wanted to share that in terms of the staff report, the information is included on the first pages of the attachment that you're getting that he's passing out now. And I won't go over the staff activities in the interest of time, but just to give you an update when it comes to the DBE utilization, as of December 31st, 2024, the Comet had paid out approximately $94.3 million, and DBE received approximately $23.2 million, which equates to 24.6% of the 25% goal. And when it comes to our contractor RATP data, and this goes back to July 1st, 2020, because we reported on a cumulative basis, RATP data had paid approximately $18.6 million, or 22% of that 20.06% goal. So RATP data is well in place in terms of meeting their DBE goal. And they have been working with us to ensure that if there's any discrepancies, that those are corrected. This is the DBE report and regulatory compliance. Now I'll be available if there are questions.
Thank you. Anything from the body? Okay, hearing and seeing none, that will bring us to D, our Public Information Officer, Ms. Bino Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My report is found on pages 303 to 310, and it covers January, February, or part of February. And in the interest of time, I'll not deliberate.
All right. Thank you. Just special attention to St. Pat's in 5 Points. I think that everybody had a good time last year, so encourage everybody to come out this year. All right, and then I don't believe we have any items for executive session. Okay, I do have one final announcement that we had such big changes since the beginning of the year. As we all know, Council Member Overture Walker is now Senator Overture Walker. And so County Council District 8 is being served by Miss Trish Aileen. And she will be the new appointment from the county to the comment board. Oh, look at Tina. Yay. So celebrations for that. And we'll look forward to having her probably at the next meeting as well as the mayor. All right. Please expect, communications about committees and things. That will bring us to item 10. Move to adjourn. All right, everybody in favor? Yes, thank you all so much. I know it was a little bit longer, but we have a lot today.